Hello and welcome to my champion point explanation video for the Morrowind patch. The champion point system got reworked this patch severely. It is completely different than it was last patch. This patch, all of your champion points will round down. What I mean by that is Elemental Expert, if I put 13 points into it, I get 3.7% more magic damage done. However, it rounds down always. So putting 13 points into it is the same as putting 11 points into it. So if you put 13 instead of 11, you waste your points because it doesn't go up an entire number. So a good example of this is if I take Elemental Expert up to 75, I get 14%. If I take it up to 99, I get 14.99%. That is 24 wasted points because it doesn't go up the full number. This works on all of the percentage-based CP trees now. So, with that out of the way, make sure if you do your own CP, that you do not waste any points. If you have spare points and you can't get anything to go up another number, just chuck it into Spell Erosion. You should be putting some points into Spell Erosion this patch anyway, because Spell Erosion is a very good tree to put it into. Because it got buffed, you get more penetration per point on average now than you did last patch. And people can't run Alkosh as easily as they could last patch, so the bonus pen is beneficial. So, this for Magicka, last patch we did 75 into Thaumaturge for the off-balance passive, where we did 10% more to off-balance enemies. This is still worth putting it into, but only if 2 people are using Blockade of Storms. If there's only 1, then it may still be worth putting it into, but it's kind of iffy at that point. So, just for the sake of it, we'll go over that. Now I want to explain Master at Arms, because this CP is interesting. It's really bad, but really good at the same time. This is only good on specific classes and specific loadouts with specific abilities on your bar, because it does not work on channeled abilities or ground-based dots. It does not work on biting jabs, sweeping jabs, radiant oppression, anything like that. It doesn't work on endless hail, any of that. However, it works on twisting path on a Nightblade, combined with Nightblades having other direct damage abilities such as Impale, Incap Strike, Soul Harvest, the other morph of Impale. It's actually worth putting points into as a Nightblade. On a Mag DK, you have Lava Whip, so it's worth putting some points into at a Mag DK, but not as many as you would on a Nightblade. Another good thing about this passive is it works on your light and heavy attacks and the initial damage on your dots. What I mean by the initial damage on your dots is on on Crippling Grasp, it says sap an enemy, deal 1000 magic damage, and then an additional 6.3k magic damage. So that initial 1k magic damage will get amplified. It's like that for almost all dots in the game, including Dawnbreaker. See, Dawnbreaker does the initial 5k, and then the dot damage afterwards. So it's an interesting passive. Like I said, on certain classes it's good, like Nightblades it's good. On Mag DKs it's okay, it's not very good, but it's not horrible. And on Mag Slorks it's bad, but it's still worth putting. If you put points into, like 2 to 9 points, I wouldn't put more than 9 on a Slork. But on Mag Templars, it is absolutely horrible. On Mag Templars, it will literally only work on your light attacks, the first tick of Vampire's Bane, and the first tick of your Blazing Shards. It will not work on anything else at all. So on Mag Templars, I would put no more than 2 points into this. So since I'm on my Nightblade, I'll do the Nightblade loadout, so I'll put 20 points into this because that's a decent number, and I need my other points for everything else. So I still have 75 into Thaumaturge for Exploiter, and then 20 into Master at Arms. This gives me 115 points to spare. Elemental Expert got nerfed this patch, so it only goes up to 15%, but because of front loading, it's still worth putting points into. I personally would only ever, on all classes, I would only ever put 49 or 46 points into this. Any more and it's a waste because it takes an entire 8 points just to get an additional percentage, and that is not worth it at all. But if you do decide to go to 64, definitely do not go higher. The lowest I would go is 43 rather, sorry. So, but for this particular loadout, I'm going to go 49% because it allows me to put points into Spell Erosion and Elfborn. So for Elfborn got buffed this patch. It goes up to the same number that it did last patch, but because of front loading, it's easier to get to the high numbers. So at 51%, it's already at 19%. That is huge. I can go up to, at this point, I have 15 points that I can dump into Spell Erosion. Or I can put 10 points into Spell Erosion and the remaining points into Elfborn. But I personally want the penetration, so I am going to go with this instead. With this loadout, I still have to use sharpened weapons because I do not get enough penetration from Spell Erosion to be at penetration cap. To be at penetration cap, you'll have to put at minimum 33 points into Spell Erosion. Because at this, you would get 3k penetration, so you would only lose about 3k penetration from your sharpened weapons. However, between Minor Breach, Major Breach, the Light Armor passive, Alkosh, and the Crusher enchant that tanks use, you can still be at CP cap with all precise weapons, like double precise staffs, but only if all of those debuffs are up simultaneously. So if you have 2 people still running Alkosh, or even 1 person still running Alkosh, that can manage to get 100% uptime on Alkosh, then you can go 33 into Spell Erosion and run a precise staff, and it will be worth it. But if not, then it's still worth running a sharpened weapon. But the benefit to this patch is sharpened isn't as much better as it was to precise that it was last patch, so precise got slightly buffed in that sense since you get slightly more penetration from your CP. So instead of going to VMA and getting a precise staff and then being mad because it's still garbage, it's actually pretty good this patch. So this is the blue setup that I would use on a Magicka Nightblade. 51 Elfborn, 49 Elemental Expert, 15 Spell Erosion, 20 Mastered Arms, and 75 Thaumaturge. You can tweak it however you want. However, this is my personal preference. Just remember, if you do tweak it, to take points out of Thaumaturge, because if you don't want off balance or whatever, just make sure that you waste as minimal points as possible, since just keep in mind that they round down, so don't waste points. See how these are barely past 9, barely past 11, exactly at 19. The only difference is Thaumaturge, but since I would have to put an additional 6 points just to get 1%, I think it's a waste to go up to 81 just for 1% more dot damage. So I just keep it at 75, even though I waste a few points, but you have to go to 75 anyway for Exploiter. So now for Reds. Reds got buffed this patch. Reds severely got buffed. Before, we would go 100 into Elemental, like 80 into Hardy, remaining into Spell Shield. Because most of the one-shots in this game are spell damage. But since these only scale to 15 instead of 25% right now, this is a very garbage loadout. With this loadout, I would only get 15% damage reduction, about 20% damage reduction for spell, and 15 for physical. So the new best loadout to go is you go 43 into Elemental, 43 into Hardy. This gives you a flat 10% reduction to Magicka and physical damage. Then, thick-skinned and ironclad are really good because they just added ironclad, so this makes you take less direct damage. So you can put 51 into this and 51 into thick-skinned, and this makes you take an additional 19% less damage from all sources of damage when combined with ironclad. So with all of these passives, we now take 29% less damage from all sources. We still have 22 points to spare, so we can chuck them into Spell Shield or the physical resistance, depending on what armor you're using. Light armor focus, medium armor focus. The remaining 22 points that I chucked into Spell Shield, you can do freely what you want, either Spell Shield or the physical resistance. I'm just going to put them on Spell Shield because that's what I prefer. Now Grains got nerfed heavily this patch. Everything is kind of useless for Sustain except for Arcanist and Tenacity. But if you take 25 points out, you only lose 1%. So if you want to take 25 points out of one or both of these, feel free to, because you won't lose that much. So you have 50 points to play with, to put into Shadow Ward, reducing the cost of blocking, Tumbling, reducing the cost of roll dodge, and Warlord, reducing the cost to break free. But since I don't ever have to do any of that often, except for block, I'm just putting all of my points into Tenacity and Arcanist, and the remaining points into blocking. This is mostly everything. If I forgot to explain something, or if you're confused on something, feel free to leave a comment or add me in game. My name is @Leonova, and I play on the PCNA server. Thanks for watching.